One of the reasons I love manga so much, besides the intense fights, the crazy transformations, the excellent storytelling, has to be the characters. In all media, not just manga, you can always find the ideals and drive of one's character that pushes the storytelling along. The better the characters are written, the better the story is. No matter the level, characters are always the reason to stick around. Why stick around for a well-rounded story if the characters do not feel like they belong in that setting? I don't need to remind you of this, but it's good to keep this in mind as we continue the video because I want to talk about one of my favorite series with probably some of the best written characters I've personally have seen. Jujutsu Kaisen is one of my favorite series. It is the right amount of action to fill my battle shonen love and enough inner depth to bring out my passion for more complex and darker series. The second I started watching the series, I was hooked and binged it in about 3 to 4 days, which probably is like penny change for most anime fans, but listen, you've seen my upload schedule. You know that I have, no time in the world. I understand. I'm awful at this thing. But anyway, after watching the first season of JJK, I decided that I'm gonna read the manga, because that's what I usually do for most series that I get to the stopping point for. Just, let's read the manga. And, oh boy, I was not prepared for the pure craziness that would ensue. But don't worry, I'm not trying to spoil much with the JJK's manga. The most I want to spoil is one chapter, chapter 159, because it introduces one of my favorite characters so far, Hiromi Higuruma. The reason I chose his character, not someone like Nabara, Nanami, or even Todo, is because the stylistic choices that Gege Akutami uses throughout Higuruma's introduction chapter. That, and I personally have a massive interest in characters related to the law or connected to some form of job commonplace in society, and I'll explain a little bit what I mean by that in just a moment. Introducing a character is a difficult thing to do. It is a crazy hit or miss situation. Some character introductions can be excellent, while others not so much. It should be evident that having a memorable introduction will solidify your character's existence later in the story, even if they only show up for a few episodes, chapters, or even seconds. Bringing us back to Higuruma, I chose this character for many reasons, but the main reason I chose him is because the values and morals that he has as a character. Back to what I was referring to earlier about the massive interest in characters to do with law or a commonplace job. I love characters involved with some form of societal issue, that being the law, big business, or even someone stuck in a dead-end desk job. Most of the time, our work environment shapes the way we tend to act, and I love characters directly affected by their place of business. It gives a very personal and human look on things where this character could be someone like me or you, and they are shifted by their occupation to the point of something good or something terrible happening. Originally, I was thinking of doing this on Nanami, but then as I was reading the manga, I found the character Higuruma and I just fell in love with him and also the story that was being told in his introduction chapter. Side note, this isn't required or necessary, but it just gives another reason on why I chose his character besides the way his introduction chapter was formed and just him as a character besides his occupation. Higuruma is a defense lawyer working at a small firm. His introduction chapter starts off with strict laws in Japan, showing the problems of Japanese society, talking about how 99.9% of criminal trials end in a guilty verdict. This one panel will be a big player within Higuruma's chapter, and I love the idea that this is the first thing that you see in the chapter. One of the great things that I love in most story introductions or introductions of a character within a story is kind of making a small little mini story for that character. Make an introduction. It's like you're telling this person's life or what has brought them to the point that you're bringing them into the story. And with this just first panel, you already get an idea of, okay, this is dealing with some sort of trial, this is dealing with law, this is dealing with society in general. And I know that's kind of like a meme, but it's a nice little touch just in the very first panel alone. The pages go on to talk about a murder that took place in 2016 in the Iwata Prefecture. The main suspect is a young man by the name of Kaita Oe, and Higuruma is lucky enough to defend him in court. As we hear more of Oe's guilt, we also get some more information of Higuruma's insight. Even though the situation is completely pressed against Oe's favor, Higuruma still does all he can to help this individual. For a defense lawyer, you obviously expect this, but in the first few panels, we see how this man is definitely screwed. Everything is pushed against him, but Higuruma hears him out. He goes along with the case, no matter how one-sided it is. It is nice that throughout the narration of these first few panels, it's actually revealed that it's done by Higuruma. It's kind of a nice little touch of, okay, he's getting all the facts here, even the fact of, oh, he could be guilty. And even Higuruma's assistant asks why bother taking the case, and he replies with, "It's alright to take these cases sometimes. Easy work dulls one's skills." It then goes on to talk about how Higuruma takes on a lot of cases like this, which is a little joke between him and his assistant, but it also shows Higuruma's willingness to take on lost causes. Just from the first 7 pages, we gain a lot of information about this small little contained story and a lot about Higuruma's character. It's really good as an author that you're able to introduce not only the setting, the conflict, but through both of those things, your main character's reactions to those things. Characters should be a very reactionary thing. You always want to see the reaction of these characters and what they would do. And I feel like Gege Akutami does very well at introducing all of these elements into the story. It flows very well. Like just in the first 7 pages, you already know like what the conflict, the setting, kind of where the direction of the story is going. And it's very nice. It's very clean. Going from this, we see his assistant and another lawyer who has worked with Higuruma talk about him and how he works. How in a different case, Higuruma has been berated by his defendant for not helping him. We see in Higuruma's face how tired he is. He tried his best to help the man, but couldn't do anything. The other lawyer even talked to Higuruma after the case to discuss his mental health. Something I find interesting with the introduction chapter and this interaction specifically is how doubtful everyone is of Higuruma's actions. The lawyer who speaks to Higuruma claims saving the weak and powerless is admirable, but what can we do against the courts and the prosecutors? Why keep going when even our clients despise us? This goes back to what Higuruma's assistant was saying earlier. Why keep going? Why even bother? Higuruma, being the optimist he is, goes on to say that they're backed into a corner. They're desperate. Why wouldn't they be? And it makes sense. If you are in a situation that you feel like you are in the right, or you're being defended by someone that is supposed to help you because you feel like you're in the right, you want that person to help you as best as possible. But when they fail you, you lash out. You feel like this hero that has been sent to you to help you and save you doesn't do their job. And you see that affecting Higuruma as being a criminal defense lawyer sucks. But you see Higuruma doesn't give up. It shows more of Higuruma's character. You want your character to fail, but you also want them to succeed. And where Higuruma succeeds is his unwavering character in the form of his optimism. He's not letting these things batter him down yet. He fails, but he keeps going. He doesn't quit. That's a good character right there, if you ask me. When the chapter goes back to the main story about Oe's case, Higuruma is shown looking tired, rubbing his eyes, and he may be an optimist, but he does understand that the situation calls for immediate action. He doesn't take time to celebrate the non-guilty verdict because there is no time when it comes to fighting justice. I like to think of this as a key importance to Higuruma's character. Even to add on to that, we don't even get a conclusion yet on the question his lawyer friend asks about his mental health. I believe Gege Akutami did this intentionally for two things. One, to keep us on our toes about the answer, to keep us more invested, which is very good as an author, as well as to show that there's no time to think about that event right now. I believe that this is a flashback that Higuruma is having in this very moment. When the guilty verdict is said, he has that flashback and he's remembering all this thing because he's now able to decompress and think about that question, but then he immediately goes back into fight mode because they're going to immediately appeal. Like I said before, there is no time in fighting justice, and Higuruma knows that. After Oi's first trial ends, the prosecutors appeal, and then we get some more information of how the society has not only screwed over Oi, but Higuruma too. Seeing people on social media denouncing Higuruma and how he gets weird stares as he walks by on the street, it then goes on to talk about how in the second trial, the court passed a sentence on the shoddy evidence presented by the prosecutors. Everything that Higuruma has done to help this man and his case didn't matter because the system branded him guilty from the start. We see Higuruma's face, his reaction to the verdict, and oh boy, is it it's bad. It's bad. I feel bad for my man Higuruma. I feel bad for him. But no matter what he did, how even this man who was originally grateful for his help throughout the entirety of the chapter, this guy, Oi, looks at Higuruma like this is all his fault. Like he's the one that failed everything. And I mean, I can't blame him completely, but like it still sucks. You can see this is a gradual progression in Higuruma's psyche, how no matter what he did, he continued to get looked at by his defendants in the same way every time that he failed, which I assume wasn't a lot, but it was enough to make Higuruma realize that he keeps on getting broken down and beaten by the system that he cares so much about. He is destroyed by justice itself. This is the narrative fulcrum, the moment of change in Higuruma's story. Since this is an introduction, one or two things could happen. You could have your character overcome the situation, or you could have your character be broken down by this situation. Very much like what Gege Akutami does with Higuruma. We finally get an answer about Higuruma's mental health back in the day, how his morals are straightforward, and he talks about how he believes in the justice system and he wants to judge everyone fairly and unbiasedly. And you see that it's backed up in the beginning of the story when he doesn't want to judge Oi unfairly, how even Oi's defense is very shoddy. He still wants to treat him as an individual, still want to be there for him. But one person can only go so far in a problematic society, trying to abide by the rules until they break. And at the end of Oi's trial, we see Hiromi Higuruma call for a retrial as he activates his sorcerer ability. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you all enjoyed it. This was my first time doing an analysis video, so I hope you enjoyed it. But if you do have any criticism, both good and bad, please send them my way. Criticism is the best way for me to grow, so I enjoy all the comments that I get whenever it comes to updating my videos and the quality of my videos. So please leave a comment. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe, and hope to see you in the near future.